watching Medfield TV, community shows.
Hello and welcome to A Discussion with Brett Poirier, and I'm sitting down with someone who's really special today for us here at Medfield TV. I have Dan Schneider. He's an alumni of Medfield TV, someone who used to volunteer with us. Dan, thanks for making it back on Christmas break.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, tell everyone kind of what you're doing now and some of the things that, like you're working at Sony now, right?
Right. I've been out of college since 2013, so it's been 5 years out in, as I say, the real world. And I am currently working at Sony. I've been there for 3 years. Previously, I've worked at different different TV shows in the city. My first job out of college was at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Then I worked at NBC as a broadcast engineer at 30 Rock. Then I went back to a TV show and I worked at The View for a few months. And then now I'm working at Sony doing videos for their social media, Facebook, Twitter, and they also have a lot of screens in the building, so I curate the content on those screens as well.
So when you're saying you're working on those shows, what are some of the things you're doing? Like, so you come out of college, you immediately jump on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which...
Right. Well, I had an internship that sort of helped me get into that as well.
Okay.
And really that's one of those things where I feel like I probably wouldn't have been there without that internship. I had an internship through ABC with their daytime promos department, and I was doing sort of like helping out with video editing. It wasn't a video like a editing assistant or anything. I was just sort of there doing whatever they needed. So sometimes it was like helping to find music tracks to use in the promo. Sometimes it was because I was like a techie kind of guy, troubleshooting the XD cam tape deck, or I guess it's like digital tape decks, and stuff like that. And then through that internship, the like boss or supervisor I had there, we had a really good connection, and so she helped me get an interview with the executive in charge of production of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and I went into that, fortunately, like just a couple weeks, maybe a month after graduating college, and that was sorely needed since I was back home living in Massachusetts, trying to get a job in New York, and I was just hoping that one would go through, because then I'd have to schlep back and forth to actually do interviews in the city to try to get jobs. But I really fortunately lucked out. The internship really helped me there, and the connections I made there to get that job. And then when I worked at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, it was as a post-production assistant. And that was a lot of also not quite video editing. Like you don't want to do exactly what you want to do right away. But it was like taking hard drives from the studio where we shot in Upper Manhattan down to Broadway Video right in the heart of Times Square, and working with the producers and the video editors to make sure everything's sort of in sync. We had a lot of hard drives that I had to keep track of. I had a whole database system to keep track of that stuff. Didn't want anything getting lost. It was a really tough, long schedule, but it was a great job to have right out of college, for sure.
It definitely seems like, and I always explain this to people, it's stepping stones, right? So you have kind of what inspires you to get into the field, and then it's you go to college and you have an internship, and then the internship turns into your first job, and then you kind of crawl up from there. So what was, from what I understand, your first kind of stepping stone is Medfield TV, correct?
Very true. I think Medfield TV was really what got me realizing that it could be a job. I initially went to a summer camp called Charles River Creative Arts Summer Camp right up in Dover, where we did some video editing projects, and I first worked on Final Cut Pro. And then I sort of realized this is fun to do, and I heard from around town, Medfield TV. I'd always sort of known about it, but I'd never really come in and be like, oh yeah, I guess I could just play around with all this cool stuff here. And so when I started volunteering here, I realized, oh, this is you could have this as a job. You can actually do this in the industry. And there was so much equipment here that's free to use and free to play around with, to do what you want with, within reason, of course. Yeah. And so that's when I decided, and unfortunately, probably a bit too late. I mean, not too late, but I started junior year of high school, and I could have been doing it all through like middle school and stuff, and I just didn't. It didn't cross my mind. So that's like one of my regrets that I didn't come here earlier. But it was really definitely like a great stepping stone, especially the people that were here at the time, like are such close people to me because they helped grow my love of TV. I worked with Jason Daniels, who is now in either Franklin or East. No, he's in Easton.
Yep.
And then Peter Faciano, who's now in Franklin. And those two people, along with Pete Kenny, who was the just jack of all trades, recording every sports game, being an interviewer, doing some technical stuff as well. Like he was just an all-around, like community-focused guy who wanted to, make the best out of, everyone's experiences here in Medfield.
We actually give a scholarship now, the Peter Kenny Scholarship as well. Medfield TV likes to honor him and the things that he did as well. So.
I'm very happy about that. He's such like an important figure in my life that I look up to still today. So
yeah. So we talked about the Peter Kenny Award, but so now you're at Medfield TV, and what are some of the things that from Medfield TV that you learned, that you pulled from? Like, what are some of the jobs that you did here at Medfield TV?
Well, it was really my focus. I really like video editing, and so that's really what I worked the most on. I had a whole bunch of projects throughout my time here, but the ones that were a lot of fun were working with Pete Kenny to record a program called Medfield Meditations, which was a cataloging of the town in different aspects. So we would go out to spots of nature. This is like all during the summertime, so it was just gorgeous, nature in Medfield, going taking video of the churches, the old colonial houses, Peak House, all the spots of Medfield that really sort of, when you see them, it brings you that sort of old school community feel. And made like 4 separate episodes, I believe, about 20 to 30 minutes each, highlighting different aspects of the town. And so I went out and shot that with Pete Kenny, and then also edited that. Additionally, I guess this isn't as much editing, but I really did like the multicam shoots at the gazebo for the summer concert series.
Yep.
That was like some of my favorite stuff to do. Not only because we got free pizza when we did it, but also because the music there was fantastic, and having so many different camera angles, and all the volunteers who would show up for that, and sort of helping them learn how to use the cameras, teaching them, and then having earlier on we had the van, which I don't know if you ever saw this van, but this thing was amazing. Especially as a kid, you go into this thing and it seems like you're like part of the FBI, and maybe up to like 4 different cameras I think we had. And then later on, when the van became too decrepit to even like move, we had a like custom pack made by Peter Faciano, where we did the exact same thing but laid it out on a table there, and those are some of the like most fun experiences I had.
So a couple things with that. One, if people want to get an idea of this van and what it was, number one is the decision was either repair and fix the van, or build this facility now. So people, that was,
right, okay.
That was actually the decision that was being made, was do we do this van again, or do we build this place? And they decided on this.
This definitely makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So they decided on this. So if people want to get that in their mind. The second thing is that summer concert series, not only is it awesome, I think, for the town, I think it's an amazing thing the town does, but it's a huge thing for us, where volunteers not only are there from Medfield TV, they're helping, they're putting on the thing, but also it encourages people to see us in a way that's visible. It's a very fun way for people to see what we're doing. We got a lot of our volunteers that currently are here from that event. Kids would come up to us and say, "Oh my God, you have these cameras," and our staff would allow them to kind of come behind the camera and help out. And,
right. Immediate volunteer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Immediately you are volunteering.
That's the interview process right there.
Exactly. Does this kid push the camera over? Now, But no, so we had a really cool experience with that. And the other thing too is we got to put our staff members into a leadership role where now they're, directing a bunch of volunteers and instructing them on what to do. So it became a really awesome experience. It's a really cool way to do it. So I'm glad that was kind of something that, has continued.
For sure. Yeah.
But so now at Medfield TV, one of the things that I always think is one of the best parts of what we do is the fact that we can offer people an experience of not only learning, but being able to make mistakes and being able to learn from those mistakes and kind of fumble around a little bit, right? Because you're hands-on and you don't really, not always do you know exactly what you're doing, but you got to learn it by doing it, right? Did you have that experience here as well?
Definitely. It's hard because it's been so long to remember any specific mistakes, but there have definitely been a whole bunch of technical issues throughout the years. And I mean, I am sort of naturally a technical guy, but Medfield TV definitely helped me in troubleshooting. I remember one year there was a graduation ceremony that we were taping, and we were trying to make sure it was going to be going out live so that people at homes who couldn't make it to the ceremony were able to see it. And it took about like half an hour, but we ultimately ended up fixing it. It was a lot of struggle going to the back of the rack at the old studio back at MHS and fumbling around with these like channel modulators. It was, I barely even understood what was going on. I was just like trying to be there for like moral support and like maybe giving some advice, but like it was definitely, and I guess that wasn't necessarily a mistake, but it was a problem that we had to fix.
Yeah.
For like actual mistakes, I'm sure there were times that there was like forgetting to hit record on something, and you have to have that once, and then it at least sticks in your head there.
Right,
like
and then it never happens again.
Yeah, you always double check something. You always want to make sure you have an extra nowadays SD card as opposed to a mini DV camera tape, and then and all those other kinds of like mini mistakes that you learn from, especially at a place like this where it's not super high stress environment, so you can it's a bit of a stress, but it's not like you're going to be fired on the next day. So I think this is like the perfect environment for it, and I was very happy to have it.
And that's certainly one of the things, the best parts of, I think, an access station is we definitely give an environment that is learning. It's friendly for people who want to learn. And so those types of things are really nice. But there is an expectation, though, is that you have to produce. You have to create something, at the end of the day.
And you always want to improve. You don't want to be making the same mistakes over and over again.
Exactly.
It's okay to do it, but learn from them.
And you certainly don't want to, making those mistakes, forgetting to hit record is okay to do once here, but you don't want to be doing that at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, right?
Exactly.
So those are the things that you want to learn.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So now, from Medfield TV, you go from here, you have an awesome experience, and then you go on to college. Where'd you go to college? What'd you do there?
So I went to college at Hofstra University on Long Island, which is about an hour to an hour and a half outside of New York, depending on your mode of transportation and how bad the traffic or Long Island Railroad is. And so I specifically wanted to go to a school where I could study television. My major was video/television. I guess I put the video in there because they realized there's a lot more new media roles, which, like for example, the one I'm working at Sony right now isn't strictly television. It afforded me the opportunity to have an internship in the city and commute in, and that's how I had that internship at ABC. Without that, it would have been a lot harder to get the inroads into working in the city. I probably could have gotten other kinds of opportunities, but I think it's sort of my goal was, okay, I want to be working in one of the big cities, and I don't like driving in traffic, so LA, it's not like I'm never going to go there, but this New York seemed a little bit better.
Absolutely. One of the things I find with television or video production, any of those fields, it's really hard to get into them. And so you have to have experience, in the field. A lot of times, people always joke about this as college graduates. People want, 5 years experience out of a college graduate.
Right. It's sort of true, though.
And it's so true.
Yeah.
But it's
unfortunately.
But you can pile that on, if you go to an access station early on in your career. And you started when you were a junior. So by the time you came through college.
Right. And I was coming back every summer, too.
Right.
To help out. So it was
And you still come back. You come back all the time.
I do come back.
I know it's holiday seasons when I see Dan Schneider come through the door.
I don't have the opportunity to help with shows anymore because I'm only back for like holidays and stuff like that, but I always show up. But yeah, no, it was definitely one of those things where I felt when I went to college, I had like a leg up on other people because I was working with a lot of equipment, and it might not have been the same exact like caliber of equipment because my school did have a pretty decent studio in terms of the extent, like how large it was, but we were still using, at least when I started there, not mini DV, but we're using like DVC tapes. This is gonna sound like it's nothing to you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
You're all on like SD cards with actual files nowadays, but and it was only like my senior year when they switched over to, actually it might have been after I left, where they switched over to HD, which really, it would have been nice if they had it when I started. No, but all of our like post-production projects were all shot using the ABC HD codec on micro SD cards. So we were definitely doing a bunch of that. But even if you ignore all the codecs and all the ways technology has changed, really just having the experience of using video editing software, whether it is Final Cut or Avid or Adobe Premiere, which I believe you use here.
Yep. So we have Final Cut and Premiere.
Okay, great. Both of those, while different, at least give you a mindset into the editing process from a technical as well as a creative standpoint. And while Avid is sort of a whole other beast, you can switch over to it, with a little bit of time and effort. But if you don't have the sort of creative background in using edits to make programs look good, Avid's just going to be that much harder for you, and you get that experience here with Adobe and Final Cut.
And being the general manager of an access station, my job, I look at, is to be that stepping stone, be the best stepping stone that someone can have to get to that next level.
Right.
And so I'm constantly searching the job market into what are other places looking for to hire someone with. And a lot of the times it is either Adobe or Final Cut. A lot of places, if they're not, Avid, that they're a professional video editing place, you can be a video editor in a job that just wants a video editor, and they have either Final Cut or Adobe. And for me, it was, I don't want the limitation of you not being able to get to that place because we didn't offer it.
Right.
And so we offer both Final Cut and Adobe, and we have the entire cloud that people can learn from, and so it's that experience of being able to get to that next step for us that was so important to add those things. So that is pretty awesome. That
sure.
You definitely felt that way too.
Yeah, and I mean, at my job right now, I work in Adobe.
Yeah.
Avid is great for a certain process. For when I was working at those two TV shows, they both used Avid because there were a bunch of editors who needed to connect to like a main server to use those files, which I guess you can now do with Adobe, but it sort of is more, I guess, like stable and streamlined with Avid. But really, in a lot of situations, you don't need Avid. And Adobe, Adobe's getting better every day for that, for sure.
Have you ever gone back and watched some of your old footage?
Like the actual video?
Yeah.
Or like the edits?
Have you ever seen like the actual videos or the edits and everything? Have you ever gone back?
I have gone back.
You're proud of it?
Some of them I'm proud of. Some of them are a bit cringy. The Medfield Meditations one, I'm actually like, it was so simple that it couldn't really go wrong, but it was like simple and like just pleasant because it was literally just a bunch of long, like 30-second shots of like serene, like wind through the trees kind of shot. Like you can't go wrong with that. And it's like, we didn't have a name for it until we started watching it. And we're like, this is like meditating. So that's why we call it Medfield Meditations. So that's definitely great to watch again.
So Dan, you did Medfield Meditations. Now you also did another show that's currently airing. Hong still airs it today. Is Medfield Then and Now. It was kind of a historical piece. You showed Medfield back in the day, compared it to Medfield now. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So it's not quite as long as the other one because it's actually a portion of Medfield Meditations. I was working on Medfield Meditations, and I got a couple of shots of the town and ended up, I think Richard DeSorger came in and saw what I was working on. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Hey, I have some old photos of the town from back in the day. Do you want to sort of like put them side by side? He actually really helped me come up with the idea. So I went to the Town Historical Society, found some photos that I knew I could easily match up, and went with like a Xerox of those photos around town, trying to get the exact right angle. And so went from these old sepia-toned photos, transitioning to video of the town. That might be something. Get another volunteer to do that again today, because I mean I was doing that for some places that now would look different 10 years later. And now you can do it in HD, which will look a lot better than what I did. But I ended up working on that, and it was maybe like, I don't know, a 2-3 minute piece. It wasn't that long, which is why it probably still airs today, because it's just a nice intermediate thing. But that piece, and forgive me, but I can't remember exactly what award it won, but Jason Daniels at the time sent it off somewhere, and then I got like an email from him later saying like, hey, your thing won an award. And I was like, wait, what? So
that's usually how we find out about it too, by the way, is we just get an email one day like, hey, you won. And
yeah,
it's like, okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so it was something like New England Cable Access kind of submission thing, and it wasn't gold prize or anything, but it was really nice to get, and it was such a simple idea that works really well for community access station like this. It's not gonna win Emmys or anything, but it was short and sweet and simple to put together, and there are other short programs like that won awards through Medfield TV like a couple years before I even joined it. There was someone who did a sort of like how it's made style piece on electric time in town. There's so many great things happening in town. If you edit together like a short piece instead of like you can do a long show too, but these short pieces are the ones that can get sort of recognition at these kinds of awards.
I would say sometimes it's better to do a lot of effort in 5 minutes than minimal effort in 30 minutes.
Right,
because a lot of times when you get a 30-minute show, it's so hard to sit down and do a 30-minute show that is highly involved and highly intricate. Whereas like if you get a little 5-minute segment that you really worked hard on and you made it look really cool, like you get more out of those little 5-minute segments than you can out of a huge show.
Right,
so,
definitely. Yeah.
But that's awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So, but yeah, that show still airs today, and you can see it in between shows. So you'll be watching one, and then you'll probably see the bulletin board, and then it'll cut to then and now. So you'll see that. But that's awesome. Thank you.
There are a couple of programs that I had a lot of fun with, but they are still a bit cringy. Actually came back at some point during my college career. I came back and did a program called Cook Off Medfield that aired on Medfield TV with a bunch of my friends. It was like a goofy, over-the-top cooking program with my buddy Alex and Katie. And that one, I mean, it's like we meant to make it a little bit cringy, a little bit goofy. So it's still fun to watch.
What we're gonna do now is we're definitely
you can
gonna
totally
try,
cut
yeah,
to
we're
that.
Gonna try to cut to that, so you guys can take a look.
Yeah, luckily I'm not on camera in that, so
Yeah.
it's just all the edits and the over-the-top wigs and acting. There was actually wigs in that one.
Nice, that's awesome. And so after college, you go ABC, then you get onto Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. What's that step like? Because one of the things we talked about the other day was there's certain careers, there's certain things that you do where like the next step is such a huge step up from, okay, I'm at my college internship, it's a fun job, or it's tough, it's challenging. Then all of a sudden, like the next step is like, okay, I'm with the pros, and it's such a huge leap. Did you feel like that leap was that big?
Man, it is. I think it was the kind of thing where within the first couple months, definitely it was a big change. But because, and I guess this is a fortunate situation for me, I was literally working in the same building as my internship. There was sort of some continuity there where I felt like, well, I've already been here. I know the place. I haven't literally been in that room.
You knew where the bathrooms were.
Yeah.
You were okay.
Yeah, and it was I think it was more like the community of people that I was working in and being sort of in a higher stress environment than the promos was all post-production. Whereas Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, it was all, ranging from pre-production all the way, to being there in the studio during the production. It wasn't a live show, of course, but and then going to post-production. It was, you sort of saw it from all sides. And especially being in the studio. I mean, I didn't have, because my job was specifically post-production, I didn't have as much to do while the show was going on. And so I could sort of like sit back and relax. But I could see the kind of stress that other people were going through during these live shows. And I experienced that sort of like more firsthand when I was working at The View, even though I wasn't like a camera operator, or like the TD or something, which I realized at The View that that's just not for me. I like post-production. I always thought I did, and now I realize definitely I really like post-production. If you really like live shows, go and do it. We need a lot of people doing like live TV. But there's a lot of, depending on the show you're at, high-stress environments that, depending on the personalities, not on camera, behind the camera personalities and producers, can get heated, and there can be loud voices, and some people louder than others, and learning to sort of understand how to communicate with those people during those times is, I think, very valuable. I will say, being at Medfield TV sort of helped me realize like what like an ideal can be in terms of communicating with people, and because it's low stress, it can be a lot easier to handle. But even just in the short career that I've had, I've realized that there are some people in TV that just don't. They can handle high stress well, but they just get really loud, and they might not be as friendly with their language because they want to be fast. And so some people are good at just being friendly and fast and loud, and some people don't. And so that's something that I know doesn't happen here in Medfield TV, but in the real world, you'll have to have experiences with people who, let's just say, you might need to vent about.
Don't use the kindest language.
Yeah, you need to vent about at the end of the day to your roommate or significant other or something like that. But yeah, that's TV. I mean, it really is. I'm not gonna put silver lining on it. There's definitely some hard, difficult communicating that happens in TV.
That's one of the things that I always love when you watch a show and you get this idea of what the show looks like, and then you watch like a behind the scenes, and it's totally different.
Right.
It's the chaos that's going on. Like, it's obviously not happening here. People have seen our studio. It's we have pretty steady shots, but once you start getting cameras moving, you get people in this room, you get a director talking to them. Everyone has expectations. Everyone knows where they're at with their skill level, and so it gets really interesting. It can get pretty heated for sure. I've seen a couple situations where it's gotten heated, even in the access world. Right. I've seen it. People starting to butt heads. It's crazy.
I mean, and even it's sort of in that kind of situation, it's almost good to have that early on, to at least know how to handle that, or at least have some sort of practice in handling that. But the thing is, it's not in every show. I mean, it's in different extents in every show, but some of them, is worse than others. And you'll hear people, just like on late night shows, like actors who will be like, this was literally the best cast I've worked with. And sometimes you want to be like, yeah, sure it was. Sometimes they're telling the truth, sometimes they're lying. There are actually shows where you not that I've necessarily worked on them, but hearing from other people who have worked on different shows, they'll be like, this was literally the best show I worked on. Like, everyone was super friendly. There was not a lot of bullshit. I don't know if I can say that, but
sorry, we'll believe it. Late night, Medfield
exactly.
TV.
And then some shows where it's like, I don't ever want to work there again. It's just there were too many people who clashed, and so when you get out into the real world, you sort of have to realize, figure out, how much can I handle, how much is like past my point, and I just need to find another gig. And especially today, the way TV and the media is, there's a lot of stuff going on that you gotta sort of know where your line is and understand this is I'm not going to just give into this, and I gotta fight back depending on what kind of personalities you're interacting with. Don't be stepped all over.
It's and it's interesting too. So you think about the personalities that are out there in the TV world and stuff. The ones in front of the camera and behind the camera are so different. But so in front of the camera, how much did you interact with the personalities that we saw? So Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Who was your host then? It was. So it was sort of a hodgepodge. There were some people who were there some days and not others. But it was still Whoopi Goldberg. We had Joy Behar, and Raymond Simone was there at the time, and.
let's see, trying to remember the name of the woman who was on Full House, who was there temporarily. I cannot remember her
okay.
name.
Yeah, no, now.
And the other thing is her last name changed because she got married. So
Yeah, so
I'm
I don't
blanking
know
out
it
on
either.
that.
She's in all the Hallmark movies, right?
I believe so. Yeah. But in any case, not a whole, because I was post-production, I didn't have a lot of interaction. It was mainly just, if someone needed, or if someone wanted to sort of like, be friendly and nice, like, hey, do you want to meet this person? So I would go and say hi and just a handshake or whatever. Every once in a while, Joy Behar would come into the production meetings and just, hang around, and she was definitely a really cool person to hang with, probably one of the most like laid-back people there. And then there are a couple times where some guests would come on, and for whatever reason, I'd have to like communicate with the guests to, I don't even remember why I had to, but there were a couple times where I had to do that, maybe because they just needed someone to like keep an eye on them, and help them out with something, and someone else was gone for the moment. I specifically asked when Bernie Sanders was on the show, I asked if I could meet him, to the producer who I was friendly with, and she was like, yeah, I think we can make that happen. And so I got a chance to like give a handshake to Bernie Sanders, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Even though I'm behind the scenes. So that was like, one of those kinds of experiences, and especially in that situation, and when we had Hillary Clinton on as well, the Secret Service taking over ABC and like everyone double checking press passes those are the kinds of experiences that you can't only get at TV, but like there's not a lot of other places to get that unless you're working on a political campaign. Like to be experiencing that, you get some really cool moments in your life where you're like, wow, I get to say to friends like, hey, I'm going to be interacting with the Secret Service and like possibly getting to meet someone in that realm. And at like 30 Rock, I was working there for 2 years, accidentally, or maybe not accidentally, sort of like half on purpose, getting in elevators with people, celebrities going up to see tapings of SNL. I got in an elevator with Seth Rogen and Zach Galifianakis one time, walking by, I don't know why Bill O'Reilly was in the NBC building, but walked by Bill O'Reilly at 30 Rock, like just, you see a lot of people there, and so that can be sort of cool, even if you're not interacting with them. Did it ever get
normal for you? Did it ever get to the point where you were like, oh, I'm in an elevator with Seth Rogen, or was it always like, I'm in an elevator with Seth Rogen?
It was like right in the middle. It was like, yeah, I've been in elevators with enough people who I might not be like I'm a big fan of Seth Rogen, so that was really cool. There were other people. I mean, I was in an elevator with like Al Sharpton. I was in an elevator with Nick Cannon and a couple of other like SNL people. And so when it got to that, I think that was just sort of weird because I had just last night watched like a Zach Galifianakis stand-up special, and then I got in, I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going? Like, so that was a little weird to be involved in, but I mean, I will say, just going into 30 Rock every day, the first couple days I was like in awe of this amazing building, which it still is an amazing building, but I mean, I worked night shifts there, and I would have free time when nothing else was going on just to walk around the building, and that building felt like my home by the end of it. Like I'd watch SNL later and be like, oh yeah, I hung out in that room, or I've like snuck in there before, and I like know what door, that door to the left, I know what that opens up to. So it just felt like it was mine almost, to the point where it's like, yeah, that's normal. That's not like other. This is like my home, which was a cool feeling to have.
Right.
And now it's sort of like bittersweet because I'm not there anymore. But even though I loved that, being there, that was one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if I want to work night shifts and weekends for the rest of my life too, which is what that NBC job was. That was a whole other can of worms there. If you don't want to be working on actual TV shows, if you want to be working with video broadcast equipment, that was what I was doing at NBC, and a lot of video servers running proprietary softwares for video playback and very technical sort of like Linux server stuff as well. Like it was a whole other side of video that you can be involved in, and that Medfield TV definitely can help out with, because there's a lot of technical stuff going on here too. Even if you're not working on a show.
Yeah, like we don't use Linux, we use Tightrope, but it's the same idea.
Right.
Same process there. But for us now, after you get done with those shows, you're now at Sony. So tell me a little bit about at Sony. What is it that you're specifically doing? What's your kind of day-to-day life like?
My day-to-day life is sort of a split of a couple different things. There's about 65 plus screens in the building that need content for the Sony music floors, Sony Pictures, Sony corporate, and like there's a screening room that has some like movie posters that we put movie posters up there, and my job along with my department is to put content from all the different business units up on those screens, and so I reach out to them and get the content for those screens. So that's sort of like the humdrum day-to-day kind of stuff. It's not really editing stuff for those screens, just putting them up there. And then the more interesting stuff is when we are doing sort of like a marketing campaign for a certain movie. So like the example I always bring up because I think it's sort of fun is when Jumanji came out, my manager and a couple of other people on the team went out to LA on the red carpet and shot some interview footage with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Jack Black and Karen Gillan, and sort of had through their like agency come up with a game that they would play that I would sort of edit together. A game involving topics from the movies to sort of like promote the movie. So it is, it's marketing, it's advertising.
Yeah.
So you're promoting, a product. But I did see the movie and I did like it, so I felt proud of at least about that one. So I used Adobe Premiere and After Effects to sort of create a game with an overlay on it. So they would say like, which character do you think would be best at this? And the characters would sort of pop up in a video game style because I was the, aspect of that Jumanji film. It was like Jumanji video game kind of situation. So that's like one example of the kind of stuff I do. And then that would go onto the Facebook and Twitter platforms, as well as sometimes onto the Sony.com website. So
that's awesome. So it's just an amazing journey, and you're still obviously on it. Both of us still pretty young, so we're still in this journey. But to see where you started and where you're at now is an incredible, I think, experience for someone to kind of hear and to go through. But to know that there's people that are watching this, kids that are watching this, that they can understand, like, I could do that. I can do that journey. It's totally possible to have someone from Medfield come to Medfield TV, go to college, get an internship, hit on these shows. I think what's the important part that maybe you didn't talk about, but I think is kind of intrinsically built in, is the hard work you put into everything too, though. It's not just doing it, right? It's you come here to Medfield TV, you take it seriously, you obviously researched, you worked hard, you impressed the people around you because they all wanted to take you with them to different shows, whether it was filming Wind in the Trees or on a concert. But then as you go through these jobs and you go to ABC in your internship, you obviously impress someone above you, right? Because now they're pushing you to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So it's an incredible journey you've been on. It's certainly been awesome to kind of hear about today.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I mean you're right about that, and I'd also add to that is that not only is it hard work, but it's passion, which I feel like is almost different from hard work. If you don't have sort of an internal initiative in you going, this seems fun and cool and I want to be working on this, if you're sort of doing it because you feel like you have to, you can maybe do a pretty good job with it, but it's not going to sort of keep you enjoying it. And I feel like you definitely need that in TV because, like I was saying before, it can get to the point where you are dealing with personalities where you're like, this is sort of hard, but I still like the product I'm working on. And for me, like I realized the live show was not the product I had fun with, but the post-production was. And so that kind of passion, you still need to sort of drive your willingness to do that kind of hard work. And I would never, say to people, you should really do really hard work on this thing that you don't care about. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but like what you want to enjoy your life. Yeah. You want to have a good, work-life balance and in terms of time, but also enjoying your life and enjoying your work. And so, like for me, I'll be honest that like the Sony job, while it's a great job, is not like my favorite stuff to do. And I'm still, looking for the next thing. And like right now, I have found a lot of fun while I was doing those projects as well as other stuff, realizing that After Effects and like graphics and animation is something that I find a lot more fulfilling than just strict video editing. And that was something that At Medfield TV, maybe it doesn't happen as much, I don't know. But I mean, you have the whole Adobe suite here, and you have After Effects, and you, I'm sure, possibly have a lynda.com account maybe, or something. You have YouTube.
Something, yeah.
You have
yeah.
YouTube, which
Yeah,
has all
yeah.
sorts of great stuff, you know, and so you could definitely work on that. And like, I didn't really think about that as an option because I wasn't super aware of it until actually something that I didn't mention. I had an internship in college that was, they needed me to work in After Effects, and I hadn't done it before. And I was like, yeah, but I'm a fast learner. And so I just was on Creative Cow, go on Creative Cow every day, all the time. That helps you out. And so that's how I basically learned how to use After Effects through that in YouTube. And that was the kind of thing where I'm like, okay, this is my passion. This is what I really want to be doing. And so that plus the hard work and trying to do things not just because, you know, you're told to, but trying to do better in it for yourself, and like streamline processes. That there was something at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire where I was working on a sort of tedious task that wasn't even video related, and I just wanted to get it done faster. And so I did some research in ways how to like improve this process I was doing, and ended up having to learn a little bit of coding to do it, which sounds, if you're not doing any coding, it can sound a little difficult, but like really, there was a lot of information online about how to work with it, and I spent a couple like sleepless nights because it was like fun to work on, and I knew if I got this working, it would take like 400 hours of work down to 20 hours. So I did that, and sort of impressed my boss or my manager at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and even though that manager didn't really help me out in the future, not that she didn't want to, but because that show was ending and I was already, you know, trying to find other work elsewhere. When I had my interview at the next job at NBC, I mentioned this process I had streamlined, and he told me literally a couple years later while I was working with him, he's like, that was what made me hire you. You told me that this thing took way too long and you wanted to fix it, and you found a way of making it go a lot faster. And like that was the clincher. It was like, yeah, now you're here. You're the kind of person who wants to
and it's almost, you know, this the advice I keep hearing, and maybe the terminology is not correct because I don't think it is fake it till you make it, obviously. And the part that I don't think is right is the fake it part. It's not necessarily faking it. It's more of just like a willingness to jump in, right?
Right.
And it's almost like learning how to swim by just diving in, and you just gotta like. I got to struggle for a little while, and I know I'm going to struggle, but I know I can do it. So I'm not faking it necessarily. I'm more so learning it. Right. And then if eventually, I'm waiting for the make it part. I don't know when that's going to be.
And being willing to fail, you know, like you said, make mistakes, you know, like
absolutely.
Even if it happens, you know, I mean, like hopefully you don't keep making the same mistakes like we said before, but being willing to fail, and like the thing that I tried there, if it didn't work out, then it didn't work out, but at least I gave it a shot, and you know, it did work out, and then it was something that, you know, was the catalyst of helping me get the next job. So
absolutely,
always find stuff like that, and especially, I mean, even just in general coding, like coding helps you nowadays. Like learn coding. If you're watching this, learn coding. Even if you're working in TV, like it can be very, very helpful, especially in After Effects too. You can do some really cool graphics and animation with scripting in After Effects. That's a little bit technical, but it's really fun. It's really fun.
That's awesome. So Dan, to sum this up, I mean, you've had an awesome time sitting down with us. I'm sure there was a lot of pieces that any kids who are interested in television, or even if they don't know what they want to do, could be inspired of coming in here and checking it out. But what's some tips? Maybe what's a tip that a final word of advice you would give to a young kid who wants to kind of get into this?
If they're already here at Medfield TV, or
if they're interested in getting into it.
They're interested in getting into it. I mean, you definitely just gotta try it for one, you know, at least once. You know, whether it's Medfield TV or something else that you want to do, you have to at least give it a shot. Not just say like, you know, this seems like it'd be cool. I'll go to college for it and then do it. It's like try to do it as much as you possibly can before college or during college, during summer classes, summer internships or summer volunteers or whatever it may be. It, like we said before, really is unfortunately a necessity nowadays to have on resumes more than just your college experience. Even more true now than it was 5 years ago. I had friends who unfortunately, while did very well in school, they just had a really hard time getting work right out of college in the industry that they went to school for, because they didn't have the internships. One of the unfortunate situations for people in my generation is they thought just going to college would ultimately lead to them being able to get good jobs, but I had a lot of friends who were studying like film or TV and didn't get an internship in the field that they wanted to get into. They had internships sort of related or like just summer jobs, but it really, really helps to have any kind of video background. And it's not like you have to be working on a TV show, although that's great. I had some other friends who did work on TV shows and did help them, but like just having Medfield TV or having a small company that needs video work done. I had a couple different jobs where I was doing video tutorials for a email hosting website using some really obscure, outdated Adobe software that you don't even want to hear about because it'll make you cry. It's so bad. And the other internship I had using After Effects, like these were companies that were like 5 to 10 people companies, very small companies, but at small companies you can do a lot more and ask, hey, do you need help with this, and get your hands in a lot of places. Whereas usually when you're at a TV show, you're like mainly getting coffee and maybe touching a computer once. So you can put a lot more bullet points on a resume with a smaller company, and so don't sort of think that it's not worth it getting an internship if I can't get an internship at a show or at this main top 4 channel. There's a lot of great smaller companies to get jobs at. Medfield TV is definitely one of them. I mean, literally there's TV in the name, and it'll just look more impressive on a resume. But even other ones, like the email hosting one that I did, like that, the amount of bullet points I was able to put on that was something that I think probably helped me out in getting the actual ABC internship at an actual channel. So definitely get an internship. Like, I can't say that enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Dan, I want to thank you for coming on with us today. It's been great hearing about your experience. I'm so glad that Medfield TV was a part of you, getting into the field and was a big part of it. But it's a proud moment for us to have you come back and be able to sit down with us. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. It. And thank you for watching Medfield TV. This has been a discussion with Dan Schneider. Thank you so much.
I think Richard DeSorger came in and saw what I was working on and was like, oh, that's really cool. Hey, I have some old photos of the town from back in the day. Do you want to sort of like put them side by side? He actually really helped me come up with the idea. So I went to the Town Historical Society, found some photos that I knew I could easily match up, and went with like a Xerox of those photos around town, trying to get the exact right angle.
Medfield TV, community shows.